Hello YouTube, and welcome to another United Logistics and Military Corporation, or ULMC video. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Freelancer. Now this is not going to be a more in-depth video in which I go through each one of the variants and outline what their probable roles will be within the persistent universe and our organization. Until the actual variants are flyable, and as of Alpha 2.3 in March 2016, only the base model Freelancer is currently flyable in the Universe module, while I do believe that the other variants are hangar ready. For instance, if I go to my hangar, I actually have the Freelancer Mist variant, and it is there in my hangar to gawk at and look at and run around, go inside, and take a look at all the various components, but it's currently not flyable in the universe. So the Freelancer began its concept as the everyman's entry-level space trucking ship. Jack of many trades, master of none really, but many people likened it to the Isuzu box truck of the Star Citizen universe at the time. Now, I don't think that that term is exactly accurate. It's more like the space U-Haul truck of the Star Citizen universe this day and age, as the amount of cargo it could carry relative to other platforms has actually diminished over the years, as we went from mass of tons of cargo to freight units to whatever units of measurement that they're using today. If you look at it in relation to other ships, I think it's actually carrying a little bit less cargo these days than it was, say, a couple of years ago, at least on the sheet of paper. Now, again, this is also before the introduction of variants like the Freelancer Max, which is kind of more that middle ground. Maybe this is the 1-ton chassis box truck. The Freelancer Max is the 2-ton, and the Hull B now is the 5-ton Isuzu box truck of the Star Citizen universe. So the Freelancer was not part of my original pledge packages between Kickstarter and the original end of LTI, which was going to be November of 2013. It was a ship that I never found to be particularly aesthetically pleasing, but I am the type of person that I really don't care what my ship looks like. I care about statistics and performance, in particular, how well do I perform with that ship. And I've been amazingly and pleasantly surprised with the Freelancer since its introduction in 2.0. Now what I did is I decided to side grade over my Gladiator to a Freelancer Mist because it cost me $0 to do so, and I have the packages that I can go back and forth between the two packages at will a couple of times, but at this point I don't see myself going back to the Gladiator. And there's kind of a reason for that, and that is single-seat fighter and small fighter gameplay. You'll also include two-seated fighters like the Super Hornet and the Gladiator in that category as well. Of all of those ships that I've flown during Free Flight, Friends, whatnot, I liked the Gladiator not because I loved flying it, but because I liked it because it was the least bad in terms of my performance with any of the ships. And then I started flying the Freelancer. And to me, it was like stepping in from going from a Viper Mark II to a Raptor in Battlestar Galactica Online. And for a little bit of background on this is kind of a little bit of a personal detail here. Switching those ships from the fighter to the Raptor in BSGO literally changed my fortunes in that game overnight, because I was having a lot of trouble really controlling the Viper. I was about 30 years old at the time, and my reaction times just weren't enough to really excel at flying it. Switched over to the Raptor, which had a little bit more hit points and wasn't as fast, wasn't as maneuverable, but it suited my reaction times just about perfectly. And it had a couple of extra debuffs that you could apply to enemies, or buffs you could apply to yourself or allies, kind of like that magical healer wizard character in an RPG. And I learned how to utilize that ship with deadly efficiency. So much so to the point of being the first Colonial who joined during open beta to make it to the top page of PvP kills on the Scorpia server. And I clawed my way up that rank, flying that ship and making 95% of my kills with it. Well, I feel like flying the Freelancer in much the same way. It just seems to fit my playstyle, my reaction times, and what I expected things to be almost to a T. In the single-seat fighters, I can outfly my opponents 80-90% of the time, meaning at the end of the day, I don't get any kills, but they're not killing me either. And that's kind of been the whole crux of it. Single seat, and I will throw the Gladiator and the Super Hornet, which are two-seat fighters, into the mix, or into that category. is just too twitch-based for somebody who's going to be essentially much closer to 40 than they are going to be, say, 30 by the time Star Citizen is actually released. And this is something that several members of my organization have pointed out to me over the course of the last few months that, maybe it's time to start thinking a little bit differently. And so that's one of the reasons why I traded my Gladiator for Freelancer Miss. I also wanted just to try the Freelancer, and I'm really glad I did so. Now we're going to have to see how missile gameplay evolves. It's gone from being totally overpowered to totally underwhelming to now in 2.3 it's somewhere in between. I think it still needs to be buffed just a little bit more from where it is to make missile gameplay a little bit more impactful, but that's really a debate for another video. Something that another one of our, I think at this point, former org mates actually stated a couple of years ago. He was looking at things on paper and he said, it was one like Friday afternoon, we're sitting in TeamSpeak, he goes, you know what? I think that the Freelancer is going to turn out to be probably one of the best escort ships in the game. And he went through his reasoning. He's like, if you look at the statistics on paper, it's probably not going to be the fastest ship, but in a defensive role, you don't necessarily need speed. The enemy is going to be coming to you. You just need enough speed to keep up with the rest of the cargo convoy. It helps if you're a little bit faster and can go out and intercept threats a little bit further away. But if you take into account it's supposed to have better shields, better armor, and much better firepower, and still only require 1 or 2 crew members in order to operate it, it's something worth looking at. And I think that person is actually dead on in his assessment. I suspect that we're going to be using a number of Freelancers, both the Miss and the standard variants, as cargo escort ships, essentially. Especially for those of us who are approaching 40 as opposed to 20, when the smaller single-seat fighters require so much in terms of twitch skills in order to be effective at flying it, as opposed to the thought processes and what you need in order to fly, say, where experience in combat maneuvering and things like that in an atmospheric flight sim or dogfighting type game comes in to be extremely valuable and handy over just, say, raw ability to move the mouse cursor the most accurately over a target, which is kind of gameplay in single-seat fighters in a nutshell. So I've actually come to really respect the Freelancer here as of late, and also it has enormous utility. You can carry small loads of cargo. You can also use it as a drop ship. The ramp in the back makes it very effective for deploying and picking up Marines, as I did earlier in this video. So those are just some ideas to give you an idea of where we're thinking about implementing and using the Freelancer. Plan for it to be used a lot within ULMC. If you have one, hunt us up. See you next time.